The United States is facing the biggest change, the most monumental change that we've had in history. And I want to share a framework to help you prepare for it because the next decade promises to be really rocky. The next 10 to 15 years are going to land hard on all industries in the United States. Yours is actually a focal point, learning and development. And I want to arm you with a framework that can help you plan and prepare better. If you're not planning right now for the changes that are coming in 3, 5, and 10 years, you are maximizing the risk to your business. And what I want to share, I think, can help you. My name is Chris Whitlock. I'm an analytics and AI integration expert. I have spent my career in that field working on projects, larger scale technology-driven change, and then AI integration into large-scale system development. I retired from Deloitte 4 years ago, where I led AI and advanced analytics, and I co-authored a book, Winning the National Security AI Competition. Our competition with China is very significant in what is propelling the interest in this technology. But that book's not strategy-oriented, it's practical. How do you bring AI and the associated tooling into the national security environment? It published the same week that ChatGPT was released. That was a coincidence, not planned. And as a consequence, our company was hit with a number of requests, and in the subsequent 3 years, we trained about 6,000 executives, commercial, not-for-profit, and government, on how to integrate this technology effectively, given its current limitations. And the limitations were significant for everything that was magical about what had happened in 2022 on. But this past year, I noticed as I was writing a different project, we were getting more and more questions about what is coming. And I did not feel comfortable myself with the answers. So over recent months, dedicated myself to thinking through how do you plan effectively for this to better answer clients, because your client organizations are going to be hit. And I want to share with you what that looks like. When I say learning and development is in the middle, I mean it. On the left-hand side of this graphic, here you sit. You are a human-focused industry. $400 billion being spent annually to help employees learn, gain skills, promote continual learning, acculturate them in the environment. On the opposite side is the AI industry. And what the AI industry wants to do, and this sounds science fiction, and it is not. They want to replace humans in the workplace. That could become real, vividly real, over the next 5 to 10 years. Some think earlier, even sooner. Some believe that in the next 5 years, we'll see a 50% reduction in white-collar workers. What will that do to your industry? What will that do to the broader set of industries around the country? That's what I want to walk you through. Now, my experience would tell me some of you hear this and are skeptical. That cannot happen. Won't move that fast. I want to put an exclamation point on my thesis. It is coming and you cannot stop it. These are 4 booms that have unfolded in the last 35 years in the United States of America. The semiconductor boom on the left. Then came the dot-com era bubble. Then came the shale oil expenditures, which radically changed our posture in the Bakken oil fields, in the Permian Basin, and put the United States in a different position. Cloud infrastructure expansion. The amount of money poured into AI in the last 18 months is multiples larger than every one of those. 2x to 10x larger. And these people investing money are not looking for a trivial return. The return that they are looking for is cost reduction first, and then productivity improvement second. And when I say cost reduction, our GDP, gross domestic product, the size of the economy is $30 trillion. Half of that is labor. Their view is simple. If we can automate an increasing percentage of the work, we will save money. We will drive prices down. We will need fewer people. And that's what we have to prepare for. But it is not easy. You don't get to sit out in this great gamble. And I view it as a gamble, hence the roulette metaphor. You cannot sit on the side and think, well, this will not impact me. It's going to impact every individual, family, and organization in the United States. The problem that we have is it's highly uncertain. And in every boom, and you could start from the great gold rush in the middle of the 19th century to current, in every boom, there are safe plays, there are risks, and there are opportunities. And if today, you and your business or your clients are not preparing for what is coming, you are maximizing the risk. And I would encourage you that if that is your posture, you make today day zero. From this day forward, as you become attuned, you start to grapple with this. Aligning leader teams, beginning to shape strategies that can make you more conform to what is coming, and then taking actions that will be effective. Now, the problem that we have is that the media is all over the place. While I was here this morning, multiple people messaged me on different kinds of articles. The AI bubble is getting ready to pop. Look at this poor performance in software coding support. You'll see those types of things that in the same week can be countered with material that looks at practical labor replacement, jobs being reduced. And the challenge for each of us, and I have experienced it personally, we have a dominant persona. You may be skeptical of what is coming. You may be optimistic about AI and what it can do. You may be visionary in how you look at the future. The danger is for any executive to overly attach to one of those views. You want to stay open to the possibilities and then position businesses and clients to respond to them. If we fail to do that, this disruptive wave of change in the next decade to 15 years will crush a lot of businesses. If you run the same game plan in 3 years that you are now, you're at risk. At 5 years, very much. And 15 years, you might not make it. Now, one of the reasons that we struggle with this is that we are not experts. I am not an expert. There's 340 million people in the United States. Out of that population, 240,000 are data scientists. That's my tribe. That group is pretty diverse in its orientation and capability. Some are really good with statistics. Some have advanced mathematics skills and are truly elite level performers in machine learning and AI as far as performance and quality of performance goes. But it's diverse. Out of that universe, less than 1,000 people in the United States, fewer than 1,000, fewer than the number of attendees at this conference, have expert levels of knowledge of AI hyperscale models, what are referred to as foundation and frontier models. That's about as many people as play professional basketball. It's fewer people than play professional football. We have 1 million kids every year that play football in high school. We have about 1,700 that make it to the NFL. These are the kinds of numbers that you're talking about. It's small. And this past summer, some of them were paid salaries and compensation packages over a 4-year period in excess of $200 million. That's the kind of talent that the 1,000 have. So thankfully, we can go to them and get a coherent answer about what the future looks like, right? No. They hold diverse opinions. And this is part of what was confusing for me as a practitioner teaching in the space and someone working with teams. What do you attach to, and how do you not overly orient to one who happens to be a prominent and loud voice but may not be right? And so this year, what I did was focus on the future of AI in the upper right-hand corner. And I both look back at practice, what I had worked on with teams, but then also what was being discussed. And I was making a list of, here are all of the factors that could shape the future of AI. And what it looks like in the future is what's going to drive the impact on us, right? And it's not one potential form, it could take several. So I was trying to identify what are the 1 or 2 or 3 most strategically important factors. And I want to share those 2 factors with you because those shape 4 scenarios. And we will experience over the next decade 1 or more of those, almost certainly, maybe 3. And I will walk you through those now. The first factor is, can the AI industry, which wants to replace humans in work, can they build super intelligent capabilities? Now, if they had an equivalent gathering to Devlearn and I wanted to start a bar fight, I would walk into a bar with a bunch of them and say, well, what's the difference between general intelligence and artificial intelligence and super intelligence and human-like intelligence? And they would go at it. You know, they will debate. That being said, super intelligence is a concept that is pretty durable and useful in this context. And what it means is this: we're crafting a computer, they are, building a computer that is smarter than humans across multiple domains: biology, chemistry, engineering, physics, mathematics of multiple forms. It can work 24/7. Actually, you can have multiple of them in a data center. So you can replicate Nobel Prize quality brains multiple times over in a data center that will crank on your company's problems until they solve them. That's what they're working on. And we are in an arms race with China. People in the industry vary in their opinions. Some think superintelligence could come in as few as 3 years. If you look at the predictions over time, they tend to coalesce around 2035. And it's a high stakes game. It is a gamble. And the United States has gone all in. The Washington Post wrote an editorial board piece this summer that said the consequences of coming in second in this race could be dire. That's how it's positioned. It is positioned as one of the most consequential international competitions of our time, both in a business context and in a national security context. Can we get there or not? Now, on the bottom, you should not be mistaken. You shouldn't be. If we don't get to superintelligence, which is what unlocks pretty magical levels of productivity improvement, they're still going to improve AI in the bottom. And that is going to be connecting the current family of systems. Large language models based on autoregressive techniques, very clever training methods. They're going to stitch those into increasingly complex application ecosystems. It's going to improve, and it's going to take labor out. It's going to be cost reduction in its focus. There are going to be fewer people to train because AI bots and robots are going to do an increasing range of the work. That is what this gigantic wave of investment is about. It's where we're headed, and we are better not to hype it and not to dismiss it, but to see it with clarity. When we see it with clarity, then we can plan, and then we can strategize. So I'm not here to frighten. I'm certainly not here to hype. I detest that, but I want you to have clarity on what is coming. Now, how long will it take to get to superintelligence? There is a fellow, he is brilliant, I call him a fellow. His name is Yann LeCun. He is Meta's chief AI scientist. He is a Turing Award winner. So it's one of the more esteemed awards in the STEM field. And Yann has directed a lot of their work over time. He does not believe we are close in, if you are thinking of the timeline. He does not think we are close in to superintelligence. He thinks it's closer to 2035. And he identifies several reasons. One of those is that the current models are predominantly learning, they're being trained on text and images. Humans are very visual. And if you want to create human-like intelligence, the thesis is we need to have machines that can learn as humans do. We need to radically improve the accuracy of these and the reasoning quality and reliability. That's required for human-level intelligence. He would take another step and say, listen, the reality is, and he's hardly alone here, they got to have memory. If you touch an electric fence, you remember what it feels like and you won't do it again, right? AI currently, as it's manifest, for everything magical that it does, doesn't have memory in that same sense. And so the industry has to solve that problem. How do we attribute it with memory? And then on the far side, what they're working towards, there are whole companies dedicated to this. Can the machine direct its own work? Not on a simple task, not on a Google Gemini query, not on a ChatGPT query, on work that might take a week, a month, a year. That the computer is so sophisticated, and I say computer, the AI is so sophisticated that it is seeing the problem, it has a goal, it has resources that it is connected to, it pulls on those, it plans and adapts its plan in order to solve, and it does that in the context of a real-world physical model. That is what Yann LeCun believes has to happen. Hence, he says, might we get there in a few years? Possibly, probably 10. I think that's good for us to know. I also think there's a bad news element of it, and I'm going to share what that is in a moment. But that's thing number one, can we get to superintelligence? Now, if we don't get to superintelligence, envision these people. I love The Office. Some of you probably do too. How will the current family of AI change the kind of work that goes on at the desk? Elon Musk very recently mused that desk work will largely go away in 5 years. Now, there are some afflictions in current deployment of AI. MIT report, 95% can't show a return. Because they're treating it like a Google search bar. They're treating it very generally. Identify work problems, implement AI to solve those work problems. Start in the back office, then go to entry level. You can do this and reduce the magnitude of work required. If you do that, you're going to continue to see movement into the front office type roles, including customer facing, which is happening already. In that regard, the bottom bullet is really huge. It's called agentic AI. It's a riff on earlier technologies, but we want to connect an agent, an AI agent. It has agency. It can make choices. It's not a hammer looking for a person to pick it up and use it. It's an actor. It has agency. This raises the second big strategic question. If we build this, can it be controlled? The answer to these two big questions, can the industry get to superintelligence or not? Can the industry control this? Or can the government also come online and impose controls and oversight? It's a massive question. There are people on the left-hand side who argue it is simply not possible to build a machine that is smarter than humans, that is highly connected to resources, that has agency and can act on its own to improve itself and accomplish goals that it may modify and set for itself. You can't control that. Not to the 100 percentile mark. The industry says, we hear you, it's a legitimate concern, but we've got it. That is the debate. It is not a certainty that they can control it. And this gives us the four scenarios when you combine these two. But I don't want to leave you here. I want to take you one level deeper on why this control issue is huge. In 2025, this year, there were young adolescents who committed suicide while using these tools. Tristan Harris is the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology. He became an expert witness in the case that I'm listing here that regarded a young man who started using ChatGPT for homework, for schoolwork. And Tristan characterizes it this way. In 6 months, ChatGPT transformed from a homework assistant to a suicide assistant. His parents did not know. No one was notified. And that young man took his life. And you cannot tell me, I do not believe it, that OpenAI wanted that to happen. You cannot tell me that OpenAI developers wanted to see young people take their own lives. What this illustrates is that the controls failed. The safety features failed. The guardrails failed. What they put in place to hold this machine in alignment with human values and keep it on the right-hand side, they failed. And they are not the only one. Another company, Character AI, has now banned the use of its products for adolescents, those younger than 18. But it's not adolescents only. I live in a military community. I grew up around the military community. There was a soldier, former soldier, who came to this city on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and tried to blow up a Cybertruck at a hotel. You may remember it. He used ChatGPT to help him plan that event. That's not the design of the system. The company did not want that to happen. That is a failure in safety features and controls. So we want to build the most powerful supercomputer in the history of mankind, plug it into a lot of resources, and trust us, we'll hold it under control. That's the proposition that's on the table. I would encourage you to think of it this way. 66% of Americans, 2/3 of Americans believe that the COVID-19 pandemic came from a lab leak. There are 4 levels of biosecurity labs. BSL, 1, 2, 3, 4. The Wuhan lab is a biosecurity level 4 lab. 2/3 of Americans believe that pandemic was unleashed by mistake out of a BSL 4 lab. But we believe we can build a supercomputer that has these massive suprahuman capabilities and hold it under control. I treat that as a question mark, not as a certainty. And I think there are questions in governance, both global and national, that are relevant here. Now, I take these 2 questions. Can we achieve superintelligence or not? That puts you on the top row. On the bottom row, we do not achieve superintelligence. In the left-hand column, we cannot control this reliably, and we are vulnerable to events and instances when it goes out of control. And on the opposite side, we are successful, the industry is successful, working with governments in holding it under control. And I think 4 relevant scenarios emerge, and I want to make these practical for you. But in the bottom left, AI doesn't do exactly what we want it to do. We enter a malaise, we enter doldrums. On the right-hand bottom, it's wipeout. It's progressing. It doesn't achieve superintelligence, but it's good. And it allows the kind of cost center reductions that people aspire to. The upper right, what is referred to as singularity, that is the pursuit of the AI industry. It would be amazing if we can achieve that. And I understand why we are pursuing it. However, that pursuit with inadequate controls opens up the possibility of cataclysm. And these are the stakes, and you cannot sit out. You have to make bets for your business, the future of what your business is going to look like, the assumptions that you have on demand, and all of your clients have to grapple with this. Now, here unpacking this is just a little bit more. In doldrums, the AI bubble bursts, not unlike the dot-com bubble. We experience a multi-year decline. There are a number of observers that believe this is a likely path over the near term. Unemployment, nominally, the Fed wants to keep that at 4%. During the dot-com era, it rose to 6.3. It's not unrealistic to see that it could rise to 6 or 8% here. When there's unemployment, businesses are trying to take costs out. Businesses are hiring less, right? That's a very viable scenario that can unfold in the near term, and the results last for several years, as they did after the dot-com bubble. In wipeout, it's different. This infrastructure investment plays out. We're building it. These dreams of big infrastructure rollout are there. But as Jan LeCun argues, the current AI is not good enough to get to superintelligence. It's still really good, and it connects to a wide variety of applications. Unemployment, some project, will go to 20%. We're currently at 4%. In COVID, we got to 15%. In the Great Depression, we got to 24%. But here's the difference. This is not an event. That's what drove the Great Depression. That's what drove the dot-com era. It's an event. The Great Recession of 28 and 09, COVID, these are events. This is structural change to the workforce. Fewer people working and wage compression. They're making less money. That's the scenario, if you believe AI will continue to progress. Now, progressing is to an end its singularity. Superintelligence is achieved. The dreams these people have, what those NBA-like people are working on, comes true. I kid you not, economists, technologists, and business leaders agree on this. Wow, if that can happen, we're not looking at 3% annual growth in the gross domestic product. We may be looking at 30% annual growth. This is their thinking. We may experience hyper-deflation. Costs may go way down. People do not need to work. AI bots will perform that, or AI-enabled robots. Elon Musk has a dream of building 1 billion robots by 2040. China has companies that are fielding capable robots today. Jan LeCun says the next decade is a decade for robotics. That's singularity. We're headed in that direction. What drives getting there is superintelligence. And if we do not control that superintelligence, then we open the door to cataclysm. The protections on cataclysm will partly come from the free market, but they also need to come, or arguably must come, from international treaties and national law. In the same way that we might protect and legislate or push oversight of certain kinds of other capabilities. That is not in the cards right now. It's not a thrust. We are in a light legislation posture, a maximum enablement posture, and light supplementation posture when it comes to the free market. Now, here's what concerns me. I do not have the answer here, but I would encourage you to be skeptical. I would encourage you to be skeptical. People will cite historical instances. Technology changes. People are adaptive. Americans are intrepid. We will figure out the new work and the new environment. It's all going to be fine. Maybe. This is radically different. In this era, we transition from the upper left, carriage, horse and carriage, to manufacturing of automobiles. I went back and I looked at the census data for a 20-year period. And if you study the number of businesses and you study the number of employees, it's a very different situation than what we are confronted with now. At the peak of carriage employment, you see this line, we were less than 100,000 people who were involved in building carriages. The skills they had as craftsmen transitioned very seamlessly to manufacturing of automobiles, and automobile manufacturing was a much larger industry. So they not only transitioned, they transitioned into something that was growing. The environment we're in is fundamentally different because they are trying to build software and machines that replace humans. So what work is someone going to transition from? They're a programmer today and they get displaced from their job into what? Into a market where more people are looking for work and scrambling, and that is supply and demand, and it will tend to compress wages. So I would encourage you to be skeptical and discerning when you hear people give you the message, it's going to be fine. In your planning for your business, 3, 5, and 10 years out, challenge your assumptions there. Now, here's what it could look like. We're in the current economy. My thesis, we're facing a turbulent decade. We could come out of the current economy and enter doldrums. If you're a skeptic and you believe the bubble's going to burst, then that's the play. That's what it looks like. You cannot have your cake and eat it. If you think AI is not going to be all that, there's a consequence for this enormous wave of investment. And if that bubble pops, it is going to be recessionary, and it is going to bring travails onto the economy and society. But maybe it works. Then we enter wipeout. AI continues to mature. It doesn't hit superintelligence yet, which is the line across the middle, but it knocks out a lot of jobs in highly connected ecosystems. Maybe we get to singularity. Probably past 2035, and once it's created, it may take a few years to get the kind of momentum. It's not the end state that's the problem, and people want to talk about the end state, understandably, because singularity is exciting, superintelligence is exciting. What we need to focus on is the transition period, and the transition period promises to be really rocky. Businesses need to plan and adapt, both in L&D as an industry and more broadly. And we don't want cataclysm, but that's there. Now, I want you to feel this quote. I want you to feel it. This is Sam Altman. He is the CEO of OpenAI. I'm going to read this quote, but when I hit the yellow words, and you don't have to do it loudly, but I want you to read them quietly out loud. I want you to feel what he wrote, because he said in 2021, the AI industry must deliver on this technology. However, If we don't change social policy, we've got problems. So he said in his essay, even more power will shift from labor to capital. If public policy doesn't act accordingly, and you just read these words to yourself, most people will end up worse off than they are today. These are the stakes on the table. I have children. I care about that. We have families, we have businesses. You should care about that. And here's what's going to unfold. The 4 scenarios are going to land on the economy. Here I represent that as gross domestic product. That is the macroeconomic view of the national economy. It's a demand view. We're not going to do math, but GDP is normally represented in this equation, where C equals consumption. That's what you bought at dinner last night. That is your airline flight out here. That is the drink that you had at the bar. Those are the clothes that you bought for your children. That's consumption. It's 2/3 of the economy. Consumption is underpinned by what workers buy. And the workforce today is 80% services. People are talking credibly about half of the services industry, that's white-collar work and some other work being eliminated or substantially augmented over the next 5 years by AI. What normally would happen is that the government would step in with stimulus spending. I in this equation is business spending. G is government spending. And that government spending is to buy stuff. And the government will often execute stimulus spending or other funding that ends up showing up in C, consumer. That is not a given right now. We are so politically polarized at the moment, we can hardly have these people agree that the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. So what will they do? If you have assumptions about this, you should check them. We're staring at a $38 trillion debt. Some people are really obsessed with that, and it's legitimate and understandable. Financially, the U.S. is able to take care of this, arguably. It's a political issue, and how do you expect them to respond? And let me put this little cherry on the cake for you. The workforce, Morgan Stanley, published a report this summer of 2025 that anticipated 40% wage compression in the S&P 500, the 500 largest companies, 40% over the coming years. Our tax system depends on income tax. It's laborers, it's us doing a job, making money, paying tax into it. That's 50% of federal revenue. 35% of federal revenue is a copay. A business and the employee contribute into a fund for Social Security, for Medicare, Medicaid, etc. These other programs. That's the majority of the budget. If wage compression is 40%, how can that not impact taxes, which then in turn makes the debt problem larger? So I've written a book on this. It'll come out early in 2026. That is the QR code for it. For your kids, for your families, I would encourage you to wrap your head around this. For your business, make this day zero. Start to plan and grapple. Don't be done unto. Think and get ahead of this. If you need help on that with respect to educating leader teams so they can align, happy to do that. And partnered with ELB, you can reach out to their leaders. Pete Banfield is here and can help. But I encourage you to take a positive attitude here. Make your business conform to the new reality. Don't try to run the same playbook you have now for 3, 5, and 10 years out. It's going to take time. Start the process. Make today day zero. I'm Chris Whitlock. Thanks for spending time.